Civil rights leader Jesse Jackson died today at 84 years old. Most tributes will remember the marches. The photographs beside Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. in Memphis in 1968, the years of voter registration drives, Operation Push, the Rainbow Coalition, the speeches that ended with Keep Hope Alive. Those memories are earned, but 1988 deserves to be remembered too. In 1988, Jesse Jackson won 6,941,816 votes in the Democratic presidential primaries. He won 11 contests. On March 26, 1988, after winning Michigan with 55% of the vote, he briefly led in pledged delegates. For a moment, a black preacher from South Carolina was within reach of the Democratic nomination for President of the United States. That wasn't symbolic. That was proximity to power, and the system he entered was not built for that. To understand what Jackson confronted in 1988, you have to go back to 1982. After the Democratic Party's losses in 1972 and 1980, party leaders created a reform effort known as the Hunt Commission. Its stated goal was to strengthen the nomination process and restore influence to elected officials and party leaders, partially reversing the McGovern-Fraser Commission reforms from 1969 to 1970 that had weakened party control. The result was the creation of what became known as Superdelegates. Unpledged party leaders and elected officials would sit at the National Convention. Governors, members of Congress, state party chairs, they would not be bound by primary voters. It wasn't hidden. It wasn't illegal. It was procedural. But it changed how power moved. The Democratic Party wasn't a pure popular vote system anymore. It was a hybrid. Voters cast ballots. Party leaders retained influence. In 1984, that difference mattered. Jesse Jackson's first presidential campaign in 1984 earned roughly 3,200,000 votes, about 21% of the primary electorate. He wasn't the first black candidate to seek a major party nomination. Shirley Chisholm had run for the Democratic nomination in 1972, but Jackson proved that a black candidate could compete seriously in national Democratic primaries. But when the Democratic National Convention opened in San Francisco, Walter Mondale entered with overwhelming support from UN-pledged delegates. Jackson's popular vote strength did not translate proportionally into delegate leverage. It wasn't fraud, it was design. The architecture ensured that insurgent campaigns would need more than voter enthusiasm. They would need institutional alignment. Jackson didn't have it. By 1988, Jesse Jackson had expanded his coalition. The Rainbow Coalition was not just rhetoric, it was arithmetic. The term had originated with Black Panther leader Fred Hampton in Chicago in the 1960s, but Jackson transformed it into national electoral strategy. African American voters across southern states, Latino voters in Texas and California, union members in Michigan and Ohio, family farmers in Iowa and Nebraska facing foreclosure during the farm crisis, young voters energized by anti-apartheid activism targeting the apartheid system in South Africa, Arab American communities in Dearborn, Michigan. Jackson connected them through economic pressure, debt, wages, trade, sanctions against apartheid in South Africa. It was cross-racial and working class, and in March of 1988, it began to threaten control of the Democratic primary. On March 26, 1988, Jesse Jackson won the Michigan caucus with 55% of the vote. Michigan was industrial, union-heavy, diverse, strategically important. After Michigan, Jackson briefly led in pledged delegates. Television graphics reflected it. The numbers were visible. A black candidate was ahead. That's when the anxiety became public. New York Mayor Ed Koch warned Jewish voters against supporting Jackson, saying they would be crazy to do so. Party veterans told reporters the nomination could become an impossible situation. The fear was not about speeches, it was about the convention floor. Because even if Jackson kept winning pluralities in proportional contests, superdelegates still existed, and those delegates were not obligated to follow him. Superdelegates were free to vote based on electability, ideology, party unity, or personal loyalty. In 1988, the overwhelming majority favored Massachusetts Governor Michael Dukakis. Even in states where Jackson performed strongly, unpledged delegates did not shift toward him at proportional rates. The numbers weren't dramatic on television, but inside the convention math, they were decisive. Jackson would need overwhelming victories to offset institutional consolidation. He didn't get them. By the summer of 1988, consolidation was complete. Dukakis secured the backing of governors and members of Congress. Fundraising networks aligned. Party leadership coalesced. When the Democratic National Convention opened in Atlanta in July of 1988, Dukakis had the numbers. Jesse Jackson addressed the convention and delivered the Keep Hope Alive speech that still echoes decades later. But hope didn't equal leverage. The nomination went elsewhere. The rules didn't disappear. The ceiling held. What happened next wasn't dramatic. There were no arrests, no assassinations, no federal investigations. There were no sirens. There was absorption. In 1985, Arkansas Governor Bill Clinton and other party leaders formed the Democratic Leadership Council. The DLC promoted a centrist strategy aimed at suburban and Southern voters. Its leadership argued that the party needed to move away from what they saw as unelectable liberal coalitions. Jackson criticized the DLC openly. He accused it of shifting the party away from economic justice politics. But the internal direction was changing. The Rainbow Coalition remained influential. It was no longer central. In June of 1992, at the Rainbow Coalition Conference in Washington, D.C., Bill Clinton made a calculated move. He publicly criticized rapper Sister Soulja for controversial remarks about racial violence. Reporters later revealed that Clinton aides had previewed the moment in advance. It was positioning. Clinton demonstrated independence from Jackson's coalition politics in front of a national audience. The message was clear. The new Democratic Center would not be defined by Jackson. Clinton secured the nomination. He won the presidency in November of 1992. The DLC approach prevailed. Jackson remained respected. He was no longer structurally competitive. Jesse Jackson was not erased. He continued to negotiate international hostages. He continued to advocate for voting rights and economic justice. He remained a national figure, but after 1988, no Black-led multiracial coalition has approached that level of delegate power inside a major party primary. The nominating structure still operates as a hybrid system. Voters speak, party leaders retain influence. Jackson was the first candidate to test that architecture at scale. He didn't break it, he exposed it. Barack Obama's campaign in 2008 is often described as the fulfillment of Jackson's path. In some ways, it was. Obama built a multiracial coalition and accumulated delegates across dozens of proportional contests. But Obama also secured establishment consolidation once his delegate lead became undeniable. Superdelegates shifted toward him as the math solidified. Obama navigated the structure. Jackson confronted it. That difference matters. Jesse Jackson built something measurable. 6,941,816 votes in 1988. 11 contests won. 29% of the Democratic primary electorate. A brief lead in pledged delegates. That isn't symbolic politics. That is proximity to institutional power. When Jesse Jackson died today at 84, many remembered the moral language. They should. But it's worth remembering the numbers too, because numbers reveal systems. Jackson showed that a Black-led cross-racial working-class coalition could approach viability inside a major American political party. The Democratic Party's nomination structure ensured that viability required more than ballots. It required elite alignment. That structure remains. Superdelegate influence has been modified in later reforms, but UN-pledged delegates still exist. Party leaders still hold weight. Institutional architecture still shapes outcomes. Jesse Jackson didn't dismantle that architecture, he forced it into view. The nomination went elsewhere. The rules stayed in place. The Rainbow Coalition changed what millions of voters believed was possible. But the convention math never changed.